how you think about life is how you're going to experience life. You cannot perceive something, create a story, a meaning about something, about your boss, the environment, about money, about opportunity, about your problem, and experience that thing in a different way than the way you believed and the way you created the story about that thing. Because life is only a mirror reflecting back to you the content of your own mind. So if you go to the movie and you're like, the traffic is bad and this is bad and people are like this and it's too expensive, and you're creating that perception, that story about this, this is how you're gonna experience that event. This is how you're gonna experience the economy and going to the movie and spending money and so on. So how and what you believe about the problem, about where you are, about what you want to bring in your life, about all of these type of things, about your body and your life, is extremely important. Because if you keep on thinking the same old way, with the same old story, with the same old belief, operating from the same level of mind, but you want to experience something different, it's not going to work. And you probably already tried to do that so many times, because this is what we all do. We do the same old thing, think the same old ways, and we keep expecting things to change, right? But we don't want to change. We assume that other people has to change. The economy has to change. This has to change. This has to be this way, and that has to be that way for me to finally prosper, or be happy, or whatever. Right? But it's not how it works. Reality is a mirror. And so if you don't initiate the change between yourself in your own consciousness, meaning if you cannot raise the way you think to a greater level of mind that becomes aligned with what you want to experience in your reality, that's never going to happen. Because if you want to experience a certain thing, it means that you're going to become that thing first, right? The cause that creates that experience. So if you want to have a good time and you want to prosper and you want to be happy and you want to go to the movie and see the world in a good way, you cannot be that bitter, depressed person that lives in scarcity all the time. That is always going to lead to one perspective, because your mind is going to keep on show you evidence. It's going to keep on creating story that match the blueprints that you have in your mind. So I'm going to give you an example. A client of mine, when he was a teenager, he took his courage into his hand to go and ask one of the girls in his class to, would you be my girlfriend, kind of thing, right? And so as he took his courage to his hand and walked to approach her, like the group of girls that she was together with, they started laughing as they saw him coming, right? And he kind of just froze. And instead of going and talking to her and so on, he froze and panicked and he just left. Does that make sense? And it left that big mark in him that they were laughing at him. He became very shy, very embarrassed by the whole experience and so on. So what did the mind do? He created story, he created belief, he created things about his body, his image, he's not good enough, blah, 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 right? And now, years later, as an adult, when he goes to work and so on, he's in a break room and two colleagues are laughing, he automatically assumes that they're laughing at me, right? He goes, in a subway or whatever, people are laughing, well, they're laughing at me. So because of those experiences, because of the programming of his mind, he's wearing lenses that keep him thinking a certain way, that keep him perceiving reality, that keep on projecting certain things on the world, on people, on situations, that keep on making him feel a certain way. And so even though you want to experience love and happy relationship, you feel confident and so on, because his default reaction, his default story, his default defensive mechanism is to put distance, is to be defensive, is to do all those things, he cannot create what he actually wants unless he let that old story go. But before he can let the old story go, he has to become aware that it's a story. He has to be able to see it. Wow, I'm projecting that. Wow, I'm creating a meaning. But that's not the truth. That's not really what it means. I had no idea whether they were laughing at me or just laughing at something or just giggling because they were also uncomfortable. But whatever he chooses to believe and entertain in his mind, that is gonna affect the way he experiences reality, but also the way he goes about things. Whether he step up, whether he shies back or shrink or expand or take certain decisions, do certain things, and eventually what he can allow in his reality. And this is the case for everything. What you believe to be true for you, you're going to experience it as being true, because there's something in your brain called the RAS that's always going to look for evidence to support what you believe to be true. So it's going to give you evidence about this and this and that. It's like the confirmation bias, right? You're going to always look for evidence to support your current belief system, to support the perception that you've created, especially if it's deeply anchored, deeply habitual in your mind. So when I used to struggle with scarcity, I used to feel like if I go into an expensive shop and browse and things like that, the seller, the shop people are gonna know I can't afford it, right? And so even before I wanted to go there, I felt embarrassed. I felt like, oh my God, they're gonna know, they're gonna smell me out, they're gonna laugh at me or whatever. So I created a story. A story that I don't have the money, that it's expensive, the scarcity story, the scarcity mind. And so what happened? I was experiencing this in my reality. I was keep on recreating this as my reality. And so that became a limitation. And again, this happens all the time. When I was running my 10 kilometer Spartan race and I finished it, I was at the end of my life and I felt like I could never do 21 kilometer. Like, do that and 10 obstacles more and another 11 kilometer on top of that. There's just no way I can do it. I don't have the energy. It's just not for me. So in my mind, I created a story that I can't do it. It's not for me. Or I don't have that level of fitness or the time to prepare, to train. And as a result, I felt like it was an impossible task. But was that the truth? No. The only truth is that I limited what I could possibly experience and create in my life because I didn't allow that reality to exist in my mind. I didn't allow myself to choose to think as if I could already have that, as if I could find a way to train, to learn how to run that distance and prepare accordingly and eventually run it. And eventually I did finish a 21 kilometer race, and I did it multiple times because I allowed myself to go there first. I allowed myself to let go of the story. I allowed myself to create a perception that was aligned with that reality, with that experience. Because remember, perception equals creation. You cannot tell yourself the same old story, perceive things in a certain limiting way or a dark way or a gloomy way, and experience life to be beautiful and magical and radiant and all of that. It's just not gonna happen. You gotta embody what you wanna experience in life. So how do you do that, right? What I'm inviting you to do here is a process of high awareness. And this is something I guide a lot of my clients through, right? Is to first become aware of what are my habitual thoughts, what are the habitual story, the habitual meaning that I'm projecting on my problems, my situation, my colleagues, my boss, my money, my interview that I have, whatever the context, whatever it is that you really want to change or improve in your life, in that particular area, how do you think about that thing? How do you think about that thing? So it's a reflection exercise, but I invite you to pay attention as you go through life. So for a week, 7 days, you go through life, you go day to day, and every time you think about that thing, that problem or that situation, notice the thought, pay attention. What is the thought that's going on in my mind? How does it make me feel? Am I feeling contracted? Am I feeling expansive? Is it limiting you? Is it self-pitying? Is it depressing? Is it empowering? How am I thinking about that thing? And if you can, write it down, or in your phone, or in a notebook, or somewhere where you can see like an inventory, because the moment you write it down, you can revisit it. And over time, you're going to see the pattern. You're going to see that the story is repeating. The word may change, the sentence may change, how you frame it may change, but the pattern of limitation is always there. Recently, I did that exact same thing for our clients, but regarding the scarcity mindset, right? And for him, wherever he was going, everything was too expensive, right? He had this money thing about spending money here and not circulating me and not having enough here, and what if I lose my job? So everything was through the lens of scarcity. And then we expanded that. As like, okay, if you do it there, you do it somewhere else. So where else in your life are you operating from scarcity? So after a few weeks of becoming aware of the story he was creating, he noticed that everything he was doing in life was through the lenses of it's not enough, or I'm gonna run out, or I won't have enough. So when you think that way, what do you think he realized? He realized that the experience of his life and the threshold and the ceiling he was operating at and could never expand, just getting by, having enough, and always being stressed out, in survival kind of thing, was direct reflection of his experience in his mind and the perception and what he was projecting, on life and the things around him. So again, the mistake that people make is that, okay, when my situation change, then I can drop that story, I can feel better, then I'm gonna be okay, then I can think better, then, when I have the money and I have more than enough, then it's easy for me to, cross the gap mentally and emotionally. But that is not how reality operates. Reality gives you what you are. So again, if your perception is scarcity, your experience will reflect scarcity. If your perception, if your experience in your own mind, in your own body is abundance, there's more than enough, I am safe, I'm secure, I can circulate, I trust, I have faith, I believe in myself, you will experience that as well. Now, that doesn't mean that life is a freaking, rainbow and happiness and angels and whatever, but what you create, attract, and what you bring in your life and how you handle problems and adversity when they come along the way will be far different than if you are desperate in self-pity and always beating yourself up, than if you believe in yourself, if you truly believe that, okay, that adversity, I can face it, I can transform it, I can do something good with it. So the way you perceive reality will determine your reality. So this is the first step, awareness. Without awareness, you can't let it go, you can't change it, you won't even know what the real problem is. So spend at least a week doing this, taking an inventory of how do I see that particular thing or area of my life that I want to change or improve. Then the second step, once you're very clear about this, once you're very aware of the thought and the story, is how do you need to think greater? Now you have to start embodying a greater story, a greater meaning, a greater perception. So if you were already experiencing the life that you want to have, if you was already living the reality, how would you be thinking differently? What is the meaning, the story, the perception that you would have differently? Again, write it down, brainstorm it, and then leave it. So when you go and you pay for certain things, say thank you, right? So the client that was like, with the girl giggling and so on, instead of going in a default mode, becoming defensive, they're laughing at me, what did I do, what's happening, being all self-conscious and stuff, it would be pause. They're having a good time, they're laughing at something, I'm safe, I'm confident, has nothing to do with me. Right? So the story is changing. When I used to struggle about being too tall, and people would ask me, why are you so tall and so on, instead of defaulting and becoming awkward and ashamed or whatever, I would say thank you. So I changed the story. I took initiative to change what it means, how it affects me, how I feel, how I show up, my reaction, and everything. And because I changed, my perception, my experience also started to change. And the transition at first might feel uncomfortable, might feel different, might feel very unfamiliar. It might require a lot of willpower and effort because the story now has to be conscious. You have to remember it, you have to be engaged in it. But at some point it becomes normal, it becomes familiar, it becomes who you are, and then it becomes automatic. And that's where really the magic happens, because life is a mirror, but the mirror changes with a delay. Right? You spend so much time being a certain way, thinking a certain way, that it takes time for these to, like the car to just lose the momentum until another momentum can start going. But remember, you can only experience what you perceive. And so if you perceive things to be limiting, equals limitation. If you perceive yourself to be abundant, to have what you want, to be able to experience what you want in your life, and that life is beautiful and free, and that there's so many amazing people who are ready to meet you and to spend time with you and to love you and whatever, you invite that experience in your reality as well. And guess what? You're free to choose what you think about reality. If you need help on your journey and you don't know how to break free from whatever is holding you back, you can book a one-on-one coaching session with me down in the description. The link is down in the description. Together, we can work on breaking free and fast track your result. Let's go. Link is down in the description. I will see you next time. Have a blessed day. Hit that subscribe button. Be well.